Hello all, my name is Terry Owens, and today we're actually going to talk about installation procedure of the Kustodian Ion Sport laying machine. When you first get the machine to the center, the first thing we'd like to do is do a visual inspection of the machine and the components that came with it. You have your accessory kit, the charger, your power cord, and your cleaner funnel. Lastly, in the envelope, along with the operator's manual, you'll have the warranty registration information that you want to make sure that you do fill this out and get it to us as soon as possible. Along with the inspection of the laying machine, it's also a great idea to remove the 7 and the 10 pin side guards. This way you can actually get yourself familiar with each component that's underneath those guards. On the 7 pin side of the machine, you have the duster unwind motor, the charger port where the actual charger is connected, your buffer motor, the buffer belt, and the buffer tensioner. This is the head drive motor and the brush lift motor. On the 10 pin side of the machine, you have the duster wind up, the squeegee up and down. This is your board counting sensor. Here you have the lifting handle and your momentary wheels. This is your cushion roller. If you're a 32 lanes or larger, this is something that we recommend that you replace once a year. Your squeegees, same thing here with 32 lanes or more. Every 6 months you want to remove these, flip the blades around, run them for another 6 months, and then replace them after the year. This is your main drive shaft. There's set screws in the drive wheels. This is something that you will want to make sure that they do stay tight. I recommend that once a month you take an Allen wrench and you make sure that, again, that they stay tight. The sensor here on the drive shaft, this is your tach sensor. This is what actually monitors the speeds of the machine as it's going down the lane. This is your buffer brush and transfer brush assembly. This is also once a year replacement on the transfer brush and the buffer brush. And you'll notice below the buffer you actually have a felt. What this is for is to catch any kind of sling that the buffer brush may produce. It's very important every day that you wipe this felt down, and there's also a piece along the top here. This is the LDS shaft, which stands for lane distance sensor. There's a sensor here in the middle, and what this does, as the machine's traveling down the lane, that way the machine knows where it is at all times. Again, there's also set screws in the LDS wheels. You always want to, on a regular basis, make sure that they are tight. Continuing our overview of the laying machine, we actually break the machine down in 3 different sections: the oiling section, the cleaning section, and the electrical section. First of all, we're going to talk about the oiling section. Actually, I have the oil head that goes back and forth and applies the oil to the black transfer brush. And that's done through the actual oil tip assembly. If you just press down and turn, it can actually be removed. Simply reapply it, press down, turn clockwise, locks it back in place. Also, you'll notice on both sides of the machine, the 7 pin and 10 pin sides, you have these yellow, what we call proximity sensors. What this does, this monitors the activity of the oil head and actually stops it and makes it reverse. As the head's going back and forth applying oil to the transfer brush, then that will actually get applied to the buffer brush and then in turn to the lane. When filling the machine, the best thing to do is actually turn the laying machine on. And how you do that is actually, if you turn the E-stop on, and on the splash guard you'll see the machine power button. You'll actually hold this button down until the run light on the touchscreen actually turns green, and then you can let go. Then you actually open up the splash guard, and you'll notice that the LED light between the oil tank and the cleaner tank will be illuminated. We recommend that when you fill the cleaner tank and the oil tank, that you do this until they're about 1 inch from the top of the tank. On the 7-pin side here is actually the cleaner pump assembly. You'll notice in the cleaner pump assembly you have the black neoprene tubing. That's something that has to be replaced once a year. On the cleaner tank you have your mechanical vent valve, your inline cleaner filter, and also there is a 5-inch filter that screws into the bottom of the tank, and that's something as far as servicing, once a year you'll want to remove both the oil tank and the cleaner tank and clean those filters. On the conditioner tank you also have the mechanical vent valve, and here you'll have your oil pressure gauge. Next we're going to talk about the electrical compartment. If you notice on the 7-pin side of the machine, you actually have 4 speed control boards. The top 2 are the identical same. The one on the left controls the head drive motor. The one on the right controls the oil pump motor. The bottom left underneath the cover, that is the speed control for the main drive motor. As you'll notice, there's a power indicator light and also a status light. The status light will indicate, as far as troubleshooting wise, in the manual and also in the touchscreen, there is a chart to view what the status light means in case there's an error. The bottom right hand corner, that is the speed control for your cleaner pump. As far as maintenance goes on this, other than keeping it clean, there's nothing that you should actually have to do with these components. This is your emergency stop switch. This is how you will actually turn on and off the lane machine. If you want to turn the machine off, you just simply press the button down and the lane machine will shut itself off. This relay here, this is what we call the power interrupt relay. What this is designed for is if someone leaves the lane machine turned on, after 15 minutes the machine will sound an alarm and the machine will actually shut itself off. Each component has its own individual fuse, for protection. Simply just press down, pull out. One thing I do strongly recommend is you reference the owner's manual. Each individual fuse is different, so they're not all the same amperage. Also, each component has its own individual output relay. To remove the relay, simply pull back on the tab, the relay will pull up, and you can actually swap it out during troubleshooting. Put it back in, you just press down, relay locks back in. Also reference the manual and it will explain exactly what relay controls what function. This relay here, this relay actually controls your vacuum motor. The vacuum motor is the biggest amp draw of the lane machine, so it's very important that you keep this clean. Every day you want to wipe the back of the vacuum motor down to keep all the oil and hair from building up in the vacuum motor. There's also brushes in the vacuum motor that will need attention. You'll want to service this motor at least once a year. This is the actual PLC, which stands for Programmable Logic Controller. This port here is where you actually plug your COSI cable into to be able to upload and download patterns from your laptop or desktop computer. To access the drive motor, your buffer motor, and also the batteries, you'll simply want to remove the 3 Phillips screws in the control plate. Simply lift up, and now on the 7-pin side of the machine you'll actually see the buffer motor. This is the CVR, which stands for Constant Voltage Regulator. What this does, this will allow the machine to continually run at 26.2 volts even while the batteries are discharging. Here's your 2 Odyssey batteries. Depending on the size of the center, you'll either have Odyssey 1200s or Odyssey 925s. It's very important that you always check the battery connections. This is your inline fuse link. You do have a spare in your spare parts kit. You always want to make sure that your connections stay tight to the batteries. I always recommend about every 3 months checking those, and also that's also a good time to blow out the compartment. On the 10-pin side of the machine, right underneath the vacuum motor, is the main drive motor. In the buffer motor and the drive motor, these are DC motors, so they do have carbon brushes. Once a year, this is something you want to inspect the brushes and blow the motor out to get any of that excess carbon buildup out of the motors. Now we're going to talk about the cleaning compartment. The cleaner is applied directly to the lane, kind of similar to the oil is applied to the transfer brush. You have the cleaner tip assembly that goes back and forth just like the oil head. To remove the cleaner tip, you press down, twist, and lift the tip assembly out. You'll notice this purple check valve at the end. On some occasions these tips can crack or break. To simply remove them, you just hold the white piece, which is what we call the male lure fitting, and just simply twist the cleaner tip out. To replace, put it back in, twist until it gets tight, reinsert the assembly into the cleaner head, lock and twist. Here you have the duster cloth assembly. It is spring loaded, so you'll just pull and unlock it from the duster hub. On a roll of cloth, you'll somewhere get close to 380 lanes per roll. To reinstall it, lock it back into place, lock it on the hub. On the 7-pin side of the machine, there is a diagram to show you how that cloth is routed. Here you have the recovery tank. This tank will hold approximately 2.5 gallons, the same amount the supply tank will hold. Rule number 1, you never stand the machine up with any liquid in this tank. Simply disconnect the elbows, lift the tank out, and on the right side of the tank it is stamped empty. That's the side you will empty it on. There is a filter in the tank. Simply look in the left side of the tank. If the filter looks dirty, at that point you will need to change it. This will vary depending on the size of the center that you have and how many lanes that you're running at a day. Over here you can see again the charger plug. It's underneath the door, and the indicator light is to let you know that the machine is turned on. Okay, on setup of the lane machine, you'll want to customize this for your center. And how we do this is after the machine has been turned on, we'll actually hit the main menu key. Then we'll actually hit more menus, and then machine setup. This is where you go in and customize the number of lanes for your center. So if I have a 32 lane center, I will enter 32, enter. Also, set time and date. Now the time and date is put in by military time, so we'll hit on the time and it's asking for the hour. Here, and then the second, and then enter. And you can actually put in the correct day. Then we'll hit the home key. Then we'll go back in and actually put the installation date in. Where that's found, go to more menus and then go to the About screen. On the About screen, this is something you may want to write down for later use during the COSI setup, is the program version, which is M3.3, the serial number of the machine, and then the installation date, And how we put that in is if you highlight the month with your finger and then press the start button on the handle, put in today's date, put in the month, and then the year. And then the QC date will be already pre-installed. From the home screen, you'll see the numbers here, 25.2, that's the voltage that's in the batteries. And you also have the time. And return the foul line button. This is in case of the emergency. If something happened, you had to pause the machine or stop the machine. This way you don't have to drag the machine back to the foul line. Now you can either press on the keypad or press the start button on the handle and the machine will reverse back to the foul line. Main menu key. A lot of the menus here are the same information that's in the manual. These are just quick reference guides like the batteries and charging. This is just information on the charging and the batteries. Up here is the charger type. The Protect C is the recent charger that we're currently using. This just gives you more information of the 3 stages that the charger supplies to the batteries. When it's in the charging stage, it should be 29 volts. When it's in a conditioning stage, it should be 28 to 28.8. And then once it's fully charged at the ready stage, it should be 27 to 27.8. Change pattern. This is where you'll go in and you can key in a pattern or make changes to that particular pattern. Not only numbers do we actually have names of these patterns. If any time you want to change the pattern, the name of the pattern, just highlight the name, the keyboard will come up and then you can key in the name. To select a different pattern, you just hit the plus or minus. The machine does hold 30 programs at any time. You can go to each system setting in that particular pattern. Machine on delivery defaults to program number 1. When you go to set the machine up, you will go into the system settings, and this is where you'll go in to select which mode you want that particular pattern to run. Clean and condition, only condition the lane, only dust the lane, or only clean the lane. So if I wanted this particular pattern to only clean the lane, I would just highlight it and it will automatically make the switch. Hit the right arrow, goes farther into the program. Now you see here cleaner last squirt distance measured in feet. This is the distance when the cleaner pump is actually going to shut off and quit applying the cleaner to the lane. Back end strip speed. This is good if you want your back ends to be even more clean than they are. You can slow the machine down once it leaves the pattern. Cleaning distance in inches back to foul line, and LDS stops machine at end of lane in inches. This is something that you'll have to go into. Again, when you first run the machine, it's going to stop short of the pen deck. You want to make sure that there's no water being left on the back of the pen deck. So most likely you're going to have to increase this travel distance to get that line of cleaner off the pen deck. So roughly one number equals an inch. I would do it slowly, 1 or 2 numbers at a time, and then run the machine again. Once you've reached a desired number that you like, if you hit this send value to all 30 programs, that way when you do override to a different program, that number will already be in there. Then same thing back to the foul line. If the machine's stopping short, the higher you take that number up, the farther the machine is going to travel in reverse. Once you reach that desired number, hit send value to all 30 programs. Lift duster before end of lane in inches. That factory default is 0. You can change that at any point just by highlighting it and take that value up or down. Distance from foul line when brush turns on in inches. What this is a safety feature. This is set at 14 out of the factory. Basically what this is, it keeps the oil from being right at the foul line for safety reasons. If you want to bring that oil closer to the foul line, the lowest limit you can take that is 9. Stop machine and then lift buffer brush at the end of pattern. What that is the buffer up stop delay. If you like that nice defined line at the end of your pattern, you can go in, you can actually just turn that function on, so that way once the machine reaches the oil pattern distance, the machine will stop, lift the buffer up, and then continue on down the lane. Lower buffer brush, turn on inches, and reverse in location in feet. This is what we call the drop brush function. Some patterns require that. Once you download them, this is where you will go in and make that selection of that desired location. Navigation patterns. This is just information on the preloaded navigation patterns that's loaded into the machine already. Go to recreation, you can select the different patterns there, like Stone Street for instance. It gives you all the information about that particular pattern, the distance and the volume, and you can actually go in and see the graphs of those particular patterns. Now your custom patterns, the only way you'll see this information is with the COSI software. Voltage calibration. This is something that you will want to constantly monitor. Again, the voltage that's on the screen is just a reference. On the center console, you have this 3-pin Molex connector, and this is a checkpoint for your voltmeter. If you go from the brown wire to the black wire, that is reading your CVR voltage. If you go from the black wire to the red wire, that is the battery voltage. This is where on the touch screen you want to make it read exactly what your voltmeter is reading. Now if an adjustment needs to be made, all you have to simply do is just highlight either the battery voltage or the CVR voltage and then increase or decrease the value. Duster settings. This is where you have to go every time you change the duster cloth to reset the counter. And here this gives you the example of oil only dust option. What this is for is if when you do an oil only, you have the capability of either using the duster or not using the duster. Simply highlight it and you can turn this off or on. Also the present unwind time. What this is every 35 lanes the machine is ran, this present unwind time will advance by 1 number to compensate for the size of that roll. The default unwind time is typically set at 10, and the default number of lanes on a roll, again, is 380. Once you've ran the machine and it says that you're out of cloth, if there's physically some cloth left on the roll, you can tweak this number to maximize the number of lanes you'll get out of a roll. To reset the cloth, you'll just press here where it says reset cloth, and it's just giving you a warning. Are you sure you want to reset? Press it one more time and the cloth will be reset. 7-day auto programmer. What this is you can have the machine set up for whatever program you want to run on that particular day, so when you turn the machine on, it's up and ready to go. So for instance, on Monday AM, you see there's 3 different zones. Well, you can actually set the machine up where it'll run 3 different patterns across the house and automatically change that program for you. We set our machine up to 32 lanes earlier. Now we can come in here and select what particular pattern we want to run on that day. So if Broadway, program number 7, was what I wanted to run in the morning, now I can go to PM. Now I can run something different in the afternoon. So if I wanted to run program 2 in the afternoon, my teen master skills, I'm all set. Now if I wanted to open it up and run the different zones, I will just bring my lane number down and it will automatically open up the next zone. Test oil cleaner pump volume. This is your oil and cleaner calibration test. This is something that's very important. That way you can monitor the machine to make sure that it's putting out the proper amount of oil and cleaner as it's supposed to. This is something that we recommend doing every day, but a minimum of once a week will be acceptable. Oil pump calibration and adjustment. Upon getting the machine, you'll want to come in here and run this to get the air out of the lines. You can watch your oil pressure gauge. Depending on the oil brand that you're using and the viscosity of that oil will dictate the oil pressure. And also the weather. The colder it is, the higher that oil pressure is going to be. As you can see on the screen, this is selecting our microliters per board. Most of the newer patterns are set for 50. Some of the older ones are at 40. But you have anywhere from 30 mils to 60 mils. So if I wanted to go down to a 40 mic, it tells me when I run my test I should have 16 mils in the graduated cylinder. If I want a 50 mic, I should have 20 in my graduated cylinder. It will actually tell you the last day it was checked on and the number of times it's actually been tested. Now to run this test, you're going to just remove your oil tip from the oil head, place it in your graduated cylinder, and then hit run test. And then once it's finished, we should have 20 mils in our graduated cylinder. The head's going to run 8 times, it's going to pause, and then it's going to run 8 more times to simulate the forward and reverse. Now we'll just verify that we have our 20 mils in our graduated cylinder. We're all set. If for some odd reason that the oil calibration is off, how you would actually make an adjustment is you would just take the either plus or minus, and this will adjust the analog value, and you would slowly keep changing that number until you get the desired milliliters that you're actually looking for. Also, you can actually test the program volume as well. So if you selected a particular pattern that you were running, once you do the actual test, it will actually tell you what you should have in the graduated cylinder. It also gives you the valve time, the last day it was checked on, and the pump setting. Like we were just at, we just verified that the 50 was putting out the 20 mils. So at that point, our program should come out correct. And it also gives you the number of times that it has been checked. Also, you'll want to double check the cleaner calibration as well. So we'll go into the cleaner pump calibration and adjustment. And then here, you can press here for the instructions and it gives you step by step. Step number 1, enable test. Open up the cleaner compartment. Remove the cleaner tip. Locate the button on the 10-pin side, which that's going to be on the 10-pin side of your handle. Hold the tip over the cloth and press the button for 1 cycle to clear out any air bubbles. Now we're going to dispense 4 cycles in the graduated cylinder. And it's telling you here, factory setting is 30, but anywhere from 25 to 30 is enough to clean the lane. So what we're going to do, we're going to back out. We're going to enable the test. We'll pull out our cleaner tip. You're Got our button here on the 10-pin side of the handle. We'll press the button one time to get any air flow right on the line. Alright, now we're going to do this test in our graduated cylinder 4 times. Also, you got to hold the button down just long enough for the head starts to move, then you can let go. Now again, as long as you're anywhere between 25 and 30 mils, that's plenty enough to clean the lane. Now if an adjustment needs to be made, simply either minus 10 or plus 10, I would probably go 50 at a time, redo the test until you reach the desired output, and then you're all good to go. On our second page of our menus, you'll see that the machine adjustments. This is just basic information on all your major adjustments, your buffer brush, your transfer brush, your oil tip assembly, and your squeegee blades. This is all the same information that's in the manual, but at any time during the touchscreen, you can go in and you can actually, it'll tell you step by step how to physically make those adjustments. For instance, earlier we talked about the main drive motor speed control board. It gives you a little information on that, and also about the error codes in the chart we were talking about. This gives you all of that information about the color indicator light and the flash code and exactly what the problem is here. Motor speeds. This is something that's very important that you always want to monitor as the machine's running down the lane. It will give you a target speed of what the machine should be running, and it will also show you what the physical speed is running. This is something you'll want to do twice a year. You'll come in here and do the auto speed adjust, and you'll set this up and run the machine like normal, and it will just go through and calibrate all 6 speeds. Input-output test. This is something that's very important. If you are having trouble with the machine, this is where you want to go to physically test those outputs to make sure that they're working. Just like, for instance, brush lift, you can come in here and turn that particular motor on. And then there at the bottom of the screen, you'll see the input switches making contact. If there is a problem with one of the input switches, you can locate it right here. Head motor, make the head move. Duster, you can unwind the cloth, wind it up. Also, you can check just the inputs alone by themselves. You can go in here, input 08, which is your resume button. You hit the start button on the handle. You can watch that input go off and on. Your float inputs for your cleaner tank and oil tank. Cleaner duster button. Contact Kegel. At any time there's a problem with the lathe machine, we are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If there's an emergency, please give us a call, or you can give us an email as well, and then there's our address. History monitor. The machine pretty much remembers everything that you do, even down to the operating history, what day the machine was ran on, the month, what time it was ran, what pattern was ran, and what lanes was started on and ended on, then the total number of lanes. The user, you can set the machine up for passwords where you can program it where you can lock certain people out of certain things, and it will tell you what user actually ran the machine. That information there, as far as the passwords, is in the machine setup menu, where it says change passwords. You go in here and you can set those passwords up just by simply hitting the digit, and you get a 3-digit selection. So if I wanted to go 1, 2, 3, press enter, and then now my user 1 password is 1, 2, 3. lanes, miles, and hours. It also keeps track of how many miles the machine's traveled, how many miles are on the squeegee, hours on each motor. This also will throw up a flag when it's time to change the cleaner pump tubing. When it is time to change the squeegees, it will pop a flag up on the screen and let you know that it's exceeded the time and it needs to be changed. Battery usage. Anytime you go from 80% discharge to a full charge, it considers that a one cycle, and normally you get roughly around 400 cycles out of the life of the batteries. Once you change the battery, you can actually put the date in that you changed them, so you can keep track of that. Again, the about screen, that's the program version, and again, you will need to remember that when you set up the Kazi software a little bit later. Serial number, installation date, and the QC date. Now, basic operation of the lane machine. You go to starting lane. It's going to ask you what lane you're going to start on. You can start on the high side, low side. So if I wanted to start on lane 32, I can either just go up one at a time, up by 10, or just skip to last lane and it'll go right to 32. This is the pattern that I got the 7-day planner set to, but if I want to do an override to a different program for that particular day, select what pattern I want to run, go back to my starting lane. Now I'm going to select what lane I want to end on. So if I want to go from 32 down to lane 1, again I can just go down by 10, down by 1, or skip the last lane, or skip the first lane, and it'll go right to program to lane number 1. Now, burn pair, you want to turn that on. What that does is now I can get my brush load up, run lane 32, go to 31, and then come back to 32, and then we'll start counting down the lanes that I'm actually running. Now that I've selected my lane assignment, go to Start Machine, and it's just going to give you, is this information correct? I'll run Stone Street, lanes 32 to 1, and that particular pattern, Stone Street, is set to clean and condition. Down here, if this is, I'm certain that's what I want, I'm going to hit yes. And now I'm ready to go. Now what you're going to do is the start button on the handle, you're going to hit that one time. That will lower the duster cloth, lower the squeegee, and turn on your oil pump. Now I would put the machine on the lane, hit the button the second time, and the machine's going to start to run. And just remember, after you run a few lanes, you want to make sure that the distance in is correct. So you may have to go back into the program and adjust your forward and reverse distance.